Hi, my name's Thomas. I'm a high school teacher who just turned 25, and now that my frontal lobe is fully developed, I've decided to start taking my life as seriously as I treat my classroom. I get paid to help high school students reach goals in subjects that they probably don't even like, and I love it. But when it comes to my personal life, most years I set goals, I'll reach a few, and then beat myself up for the rest that I missed, usually going back on autopilot by month 2 or 3. So this year, instead of setting goals and writing to-do lists in my normal way, I'm lesson planning my life as if it were one of my classes. But designing my life feels a little trickier than planning an English class. So I've brain dumped my ideas in the same way that I'd plan any of my classes, using understanding by design. Okay, so what is understanding by design, or UBD? UBD is a pedagogical tool to design classes, beginning with the end goals and understandings in mind, and then working your way backwards. So it's broken down into 3 main stages. The first step is identifying what your desired results are. What do you actually want to get out of the course? What are the actual goals you're trying to accomplish with your students? 2, determining acceptable evidence. So how am I going to measure students' progress in those areas? And then 3, planning learning experiences and lessons based on those goals. So it seems very straightforward, right? You take your end goals, you break them into smaller units, you break those units into lessons, and then you determine ways to practice to reach those goals. But even a decade ago, this wasn't really the norm in classrooms. Teachers might start at the beginning of a chapter or start by lesson planning, working their way from start to finish until they hit the end of a chapter or a quarter or a semester, or just figured it was time for a test or an essay, at which point they might make up an assignment that they hoped covered the whole chapter or unit or last couple of weeks of education, or maybe just pulled out a standard issue exam or test. And as a result, standards were never really explicit. Students' grades often reflected their ability to play an invisible game more than to actually learn material that they needed to learn. And teachers would find themselves scrambling through the end of a chapter just to get it in before the test. Not ideal. But so often when it comes to my own life, this is exactly how I operate. I spend my Sundays anxiously spinning and ruminating about what I might want to get done the next week, beating myself up for the things I didn't hit the last week, or telling myself that I need to do more to reach my goals. No clear standards, no real expectations, no way to measure anything. Just a vague voice yelling, "Work harder, Thomas," in the back of my head. In a lot of ways, I think I'm a much better teacher to my students than I am to myself. So I'm hoping to transfer a lot of the skills and strategies that I've learned the last couple of years to my own goals and self-talk this year. Okay, so this is a UBD placemat. It's available for free and linked below. It's what we use at my current school during professional development sessions or within our different departments to help unify our curriculum and inform our lessons. It looks pretty boring, but I think it's actually a really great organizational tool. I've spent a good deal of time mapping my life this year across this placemat, so let's go through the process, starting with big picture learning targets and goals. Stage 1, desired results. I'll show you what this looks like in a slightly more academic setting. Here's a section of the placemat I used to design the summer cooking class I created at my high school last summer. And here's stage 1 for my own life. By my 26th birthday, I will be able to independently, 1, trust in myself by following through on my goals and practicing healthy self-regulation. 2, digitally document my process creatively and consistently. 3, prioritize and grow my communities and my relationships. So as you can see, these are pretty big picture, right? Like in an English class, these might be slightly more specific, but they're still way bigger scope items. It's not necessarily be able to read Hamlet by Shakespeare. It'd be something more like understand how text through different periods of time can affect my life today, be able to write clearly and creatively, those kind of things, right? So it's really the idea of when I leave this class, what am I going to take with me, regardless of where I end up afterwards? Stage 1 gets broken down a little bit further too, into meaning and acquisition. Under the meaning category, we break those big transfer goals into understandings and essential questions. And then under acquisition, it's broken into skills and specific ideas that I'll know. So this part's a little bit trickier just because I've never been 25 before, so I don't really know what that holds. But when I was trying to think of things that I would hope to understand by the end of this year, this is what I came up with. By my 26th birthday, I will understand I can trust myself in my decisions. So playing off that first big transfer goal, that small, consistent actions can lead to big results. This definitely goes to my second transfer goal, but really applies to most of the things I'm doing. And it's something that I really want to lean into this year, and that I'm loved and that I can show love to others. This one's a little bit gooier than the rest, but kind of a big goal for life. We'll see how that goes. And then some essential questions. This is my favorite section, I think. Maybe it's just because I'm in teacher mode, but 1, how can I balance my priorities to have the life I want with the least amount of stress? This is something that's been on my mind for a long time, and I've really let it consume me in some ways. And hopefully naming that and incorporating it into this placemat will help me figure out new strategies around that. 2, what stories do I enjoy sharing or writing about? So this definitely has to do with the content side of things, but also just in general, what do I get most excited about? I have a lot of different things I like to share, but I haven't quite figured out which ones bring me the most joy and which ones I'd like to kind of just do on my own. So I'll be exploring that. And then 3, what communities and relationships do I want to invest in and how? So playing off of those big transfer goals again, just getting more and more intentional. Who do I want to spend my time with? Where do I want to spend my time? I think all these questions have to do with that idea, like how do I balance my time? Okay, moving on to acquisition. So more tangible skills and things I'll know. By my 26th birthday, I will know 1, more successful strategies to listen to my intuition and trust my decisions. Big theme going across the board here. 2, how to produce long and short form content that feels authentic and exciting. Just this video alone, so much work has gone into it. This is a skill that I have not practiced very much before. So getting more efficient and figuring out what I can do that works and what doesn't work, that's a big skill this year. 3, how to build and maintain communities and friendships, recurring all the way from my big goals to my more tangible skills and understandings. Okay, lastly, the skills. By my 26th birthday, I will be skilled at 1, balancing my physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual practices. That's a doozy. It's a skill that I want pretty much my whole life, but I just wanted to name it specifically for this year. 2, I'll be skilled at writing and publishing content consistently. There have been different phases this year where I've been able to tap into that, and it's been a lot of fun, but it's also a lot of work. So just working on that skill and getting more efficient. 3, creating and building my communities and relationships. Self-explanatory. 4, scheduling shit in advance. I suck at using my calendar, and I think now that I'm 25, I just need to suck it up and be an adult. Also, as somebody who perceives time on the slow side, I think it'll be helpful to just put things on the calendar and have specific things I need to do, which this whole project is kind of a part of as well. And then 5, recognizing moments where I feel uncomfortable and digging deeper into that, especially when I'm at home or on my own. What I think I mean most specifically is moments where I know that I'm avoiding something and I'm using my phone to numb that feeling. That's something I catch myself doing often. My screen time's abysmal. I'm sure a lot of people's are, but that's just something I want to be a little bit more conscious of and dig deeper into. All right, we've made it to stage 2, which is determining acceptable evidence. When I learned about this in a classroom setting, it kind of blew my mind thinking back on a lot of the classes that I've taken across my school career, because as somebody who cared a lot about their grades and obsessed over them a lot, it's interesting just how much goes into planning how those grades get calculated. How much does homework cost? Do you accept late work? How much are the final projects? Can you do retakes? Are the grades weighted? How much feedback did you get and how? All these questions kind of blew my mind and made me think a lot more intentionally about the way that I treated my students in my grading. When it comes to my life, this is where things get a bit weird. Like, I don't want this project to be something where I give myself homework assignments and then I go do them one by one. The goal of this is more to bring all the different parts of my work and interests into one mutually beneficial package. It's a lot easier to break down analyzing a poem into smaller chunks or units and then plan lessons out of there. But when it's your whole life for a year, it's hard to kind of slice things into neat pieces. And so many of my goals are highly intertwined. In this case, instead, I want to focus on what are my inputs. I just want to be doing things. The small, consistent actions lead to bigger results, and then see where they go from there. So I'm much more interested in just checking off those boxes and seeing what happens than trying to hit any specific point. That was maybe a little more confusing than it needs to be, but I've sorted evidence into 6 input-based actions that I really think capture all of my transfer goals. So 1, posting at least 3 to 4 short form videos a week. 2, posting 10 to 12 longer videos like this one here on YouTube. 3, recording 6 to 8 interviews with people I admire. 4, sharing a meal with family or friends at least once a week. That's been a practice I added in more toward the end of this year. It's really brought a ton of joy and gratitude to my life, so I want to keep that up. 5, call a friend or a family member at least twice a week. This is something I'm not so good at, and I definitely want to incorporate more. And then 6.
Okay, Editor Thomas here. When I was planning this whole thing, my original number 6 goal was to run a marathon. But after a little bit of reflection, that didn't really feel super authentic or like one of my actual goals. I've been running a lot, and I think a half marathon would be reasonable, but a marathon was just kind of one of those things that sounded good. But committing that, I think, would distract from a lot of my other goals. So for now, there's just 5 inputs.
And then there's a section for other evidence. So this is where I kind of think of formative assessments or practice pretty much. In my class, these are things like homework or quick check-ins at the beginning or end of class that don't get a lot of grade or any grade, but I can get quick feedback to students. And same for me, there's a lot of ways that I want to be able to consistently give myself feedback in ways that are gentle and helpful, but not bigger, loftier to-dos. Most of these are framed as questions that I'll track either in my notebook, my journal, or my calendar, but I'm hoping that they can be helpful guiding questions throughout this experiment. So 1, am I becoming more aware of how I use my phone to avoid being uncomfortable? I think I'm gonna have a tracking system for this, just a little mark in my notes app to notice when I'm scrolling or using my phone, knowing that that's not really what I wanna be doing. That's one thing I think will be pretty simple to track and hopefully practice over time. 2, am I managing my struggles with task initiation? I am a great idea guy and I'm pretty good at doing things once I've started. Getting started just really is tricky for me. I don't know if it's a perfectionism or procrastination thing. This is where I think that my calendar is gonna be a huge help. So I'm excited to use that tool a little more effectively. 3, am I continuing healthy habits that I've implemented the last year or two that have really improved my life? These are things like journaling, my general fitness, my nutrition, therapy, family, things like that that have really helped my life the last year or two. 5, do I feel proud of my work as a teacher and am I growing professionally? So I'll be starting grad school this semester, so that's already one step on the horizon, but I wanna make sure that regardless of this experiment and other things going on, that I can feel good about what I'm doing for my students and my colleagues. On the flip side, 6, am I maintaining healthy boundaries and balance around work? Especially in my role at school, it can be easy to be there all the time. And I wanna make sure that I am dividing my time between my professional life and personal life in ways that fill me up more than drain me. 7, do I have a music practice that feels enjoyable and balanced? My trombones are over here. I haven't touched them in a couple weeks. I've been playing some guitar. I have a lot more guitar students this year. What types of music I'm playing, what groups I'm playing in, how much I'm practicing. All those things can be a little tricky to balance after graduating from music school, where you're playing and practicing all the time. And lastly, number 8, do I feel connected to God and the world around me, and do I have a spiritual practice? So this is something that has definitely ebbed and flowed throughout my life. This last year, I think I started working on this more. It's just a component for myself that I would like to work on and see where it goes. So those are some loose questions I can go to, journal prompts I can ask myself throughout the years I'm growing in these goals. All right, and stage 3, the learning plan. What are the experiences and lessons gonna look like? So in my English classes, every unit, my students all get a sheet that kind of echoes this placemat so that they know what's going on with what text do they need, what are the essential skills they need to succeed on the big assessments, when is the big assessment, what does the rubric look like, those kind of things. And that physical portfolio that they have with all their work and these unit outlines is all matched online with the learning software too. So why do I do that? To make things as clear as possible for the students, but also for myself, so that all of us in the classroom know what we're doing and why we're moving forward with those things. I didn't do this as explicitly last year, and it has been a massive help for me and I think my students too this year. From the list of skills, I can very easily map out the dozen or so classes in between assessments and decide the best ways to spend class modeling and practicing the behaviors that I want to see. It was fun throwing those together in Canva and it's very helpful in the classroom, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to juggle more and more trackers and journals than I already have in my life. So when it comes to planning on a month, week, day level, I'm gonna keep using my favorite app of all time, Obsidian. For you, this could be a notes app, your journal, a fancy Notion page, wherever you keep track of your life. But I use the daily note template on Obsidian like crazy. It's really awesome, especially since most of my goals this year are input-based and revolve around checking off that I've been consistently doing them. I think I can really start to leverage the weekly and monthly note templates that I haven't really used as much in the past to sort of mimic the unit lesson sheets that I give my students, just a little bit more informal and always in my pocket. But like I said, for the most part this year, I want to just be doing things. I don't want to think too much about them. I don't want this to become another way that I organize and overthink instead of executing. And since I'm not getting paid to teach myself and it's my life, so I'm already obsessing over most things anyway, I'm not too worried on giving myself a lack of feedback. So that's my loose lesson plan for 25. Lots of big changes on the horizon, but also a lot of great things to keep capitalizing on. I'm pretty grateful for the people in my life and the position that I'm in, and I'm very excited to see how I perform in my own class. But at the same time, I want this to feel authentic and doable and not forced or burdensome. If you stuck around all the way to listen to me in this video, it really means a lot. Would love to hear if you found any of this enjoyable or entertaining or inspiring, and I always enjoy chatting in the comments. Cheers to 25.